the increase in hypersensitivity, having to like stim to regulate the body, not being able to cope with public transport or public environments like we used to be able to do with more ease and more masking, and I think that's the thing. As we asked for more embodiment of our soul, what did we think that was going to look like? So I'm going to do as a little intro again because I've been introducing us for anyone that might be new to our videos. It came across that, you might not have ever watched us before. You might think, what are these two ladies absolutely rambling on about? So, we are Z and Anya. We are working with many different multidimensional levels. And if you do check through our YouTube channel, we have a whole Power of Energy Series 1 and a whole Power of Energy Series 2 that this is currently a part of Series 2. So you can catch all those previous episodes on there, and we do dive into everything from past lives itself, feminine energy, masculine energy, nervous system.
Humanness. And on my channel, everybody, this is Let's Get Real. Okay,
Sorry about that. So, we've got different titles. I do apologize. Yeah, so we've got two different titles. Sorry for the confusion there, guys. So you find us on different YouTube. All the links will be below, so don't worry about that. But yeah, today we're diving in. We're going in there. We're going to dive into the triad, the trinity between the mind, body, and soul, what that means, what that looks like, how that manifests in the human realm. We're also going to dive into NDEs, near-death experiences. We're going to share we're going to share a couple of our stories and a couple of experiences we've been through and we've witnessed on our journeys as well, and also how that ties in to your spiritual awakening and living in your purpose as well. And as always, guys, we do like to dive deep, and we don't always expect everyone to fully grasp every single tiny thing we talk about. That's the point. So if you do have any questions, let us know. That's the point. We want to connect in with you guys and share everything we know and also learn from you. So please do get in. And I can't wait to see where this conversation takes us.
Ooh, okay. So we went on with a death doula not too long ago, talking about the whole death experience, which brought up more. I ended up having an NDE after that. And
Only
so
you.
aligned with my own experience. I was like just piping along and I was like, uh-oh.
Oh damn.
As that was a part of my reality that needed to be shifted. How to, talk a little bit more about that, but I want to get deeper on the NDE because we're not the only ones who have experienced them, who are currently experiencing and might not know what they are.
Right. And also, Z, you mentioned you've done a full video explaining your experience and what happened on that. So if you send me the link, I'll put that on there as well, because I'm sure many people will be interested in diving into that and seeing what happened real time. But yeah, I guess what it sparked for me is it sparked a whole new level of curiosity, because
Yeah.
we had that beautiful conversation with Becca and it was so activating and really sparking all these new things that I'd not really thought about. And again, that was what drew me to Becca in the first place, was this different angle and different perspective in the way that we work. And I loved that. And then obviously me and you jumped on just for a little chat last week and you was sharing your experience. And one thing I took from that was how it wasn't as physical to the way I perceive NDs, for example. When you hear about them, when you kind of talk about them, when anyone talks about them, you kind of picture it as someone's on a hospital bed having a cardiac arrest and they leave their body, they're looking at the body, they might go somewhere, they might experience things and then return to the body. That's what I usually perceive as like the classic NDE experience. And I guess that had really limited my parameters on what does a near-death experience actually look like? What does it feel like? How does it manifest in the human form? And is there different dynamics for how that can happen? And yeah, I really found your experience interesting for the ways in which it showed me that a near-death experience is not always as physically manifesting in the human realm as we may think it is. And that may think some of us to dismiss it or to not give it acknowledgement and validation or to even not know. So what do you think about that?
I think there's such a variation. I'm gonna say there's a spectrum to these, and I think we've heard the classic one. I've had the classic one several times. I've had just I'm out of body. And I'm like, oh, look, I'm traversing. That's like an upgrade. I can feel the energy. I can see what's going on and come back to my body. Okay, and
Yeah.
I have the one that I had a few weeks ago, which was very immersive to both my body and my soul. Like I was very present to both of them, and they were both very aware. They weren't separated, but they're different consciousnesses. Like my body is housing my essence, right? So I could
Right.
tell the difference between both of them, and my body was processing the body format of what that would look like, and my soul was processing other realms, other existences, to bring the truth back into the body.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you word that as well, because the way I translate that is we are getting to a level of being so aware of our bodies. And specifically because you have experienced a more classic, let's go with that terminology, because I'm really unfamiliar with this terminology. So I'm just like, winging it. But, because you've had that experience of a classic NDE, I guess for you, it may feel a little bit more resonant to understand it and to recognize the experience when it happens in other forms, because you've had that sense of, okay, this happened. I know what this meant, this experience happened and I guess it gives you a form of a guideline or a baseline to go back to when you kind of assessing what this is on a human level, because as energy workers, we both know how sometimes long it takes us to get to this place of fully knowing. Like, yeah, we know we get this stuff through and we believe it and we fully get, but then like embodying it and being like, yeah, no, that's 100% what happened.
Yep.
It takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of confidence. It takes a little bit of awareness of self. There's so much that goes on there. And I think that's what I want to kind of highlight in on is your confidence in knowing, actually, no, that is what happened. And that's, I know that for a fact.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is so many times of having these experiences. I always say that's like such a big aspect of my experience, which makes my now experience, I feel like much easier because like I've had that so many times that I'm like, oh, yeah, that part's easy. I think the embodiment part is the hardest, most challenging part of actually living
Right.
in the reality. Like death, great. I can do that all day, but being able to go, oh, here's the information that I got. This is what's moving through my body. How am I going to walk this now in this physical reality? Because
Yeah.
that's my truth and my knowing. I know I'm meant to do that, and by doing that, that's what's making the shifties. Not just for me, for everybody. Uh,
Yeah.
to have like the classic near death, for any of you guys who don't know me, I was in the elite trafficking circa, sexual trafficking, ritualistic stuff. So those near deaths were very real. The last one that I had in that experience, I was dead, dead. I was really dead. And the only thing that kept my body alive was that some of the people running that whole situation wanted me alive for something. So they did mouth to mouth.
Mm.
So for me to come out of that experience and then come back into the body, that was rough. I did not. That was a rough,
Wow.
rough experience for my body, to be present and alive and then wake up after that. And then having some of the information in my remembrance, and that's the soul piece that we're resonating back into the body to going, oh, but I'm getting out of this. I knew after that one I was getting out of that.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the kind of maybe in some ways information you didn't need to know to be able to even survive that chapter that you were in at all.
Absolutely.
And that does make sense. And I guess it does make you think there is always purpose to why these experiences happen, even if it is, I guess, terrifying, unknown.
For sure.
But it's just brought up so many questions for me in terms of, not in a bad way. I'm so grateful for you also sharing your vulnerability and sharing them experiences with us. It takes a lot to be kind of brave and talk about that stuff. People don't have always the understanding, compassion, awareness, empathy. And so I do really appreciate you sharing them vulnerable experiences. So thank you. Yeah, and I guess for me, as you were talking, I'm getting these downloads and frequencies coming in about how many times in my journey I've felt like I've been at the brink of, I nearly didn't make it through that. But because I say it wasn't physical. I mean, I was in the hospital on morphine intravenously, but I didn't have that, like, cardiac arrest or like, everyone swamping in, and I didn't get that sense of human confirmation, lack of better terms. It was more, I had the sense of, I had experiences up there that I knew weren't human, that I knew weren't normal, if that makes sense. Like, they weren't just being on medication. Like, I'd have full-on conversations, I'd see myself in different bodies. And kind of the main message, I was 15 when this started, and the main message I kept getting is, you're not doing what you're meant to be doing. You're not where you're meant to be. Yeah. And it would really throw me off, because the next day I would be straight back to work, straight back to uni, completely ignoring what I was told over and over again, until it got worse and worse, until it was so in my face. And I guess I kind of was thinking back, me and you had the conversation the other day, and then I listened to a podcast, and this woman on the podcast was saying, when she had the choice to come back down, which I remember willingly choosing to leave my body because I was in that much pain and that much I can't do this anymore, I need to check out, even if it was just for a little while. 6 hours out of my human body felt like days up there. So, that break was cool. I was enjoying the break. And I feel like years later, I figured out that subconsciously my body was doing that to give me rest. And once I figured that out, it didn't happen anymore. So that was really interesting. But yeah, so my point is, when I was going to the hospital, I was checking out on my body completely. I was completely unconscious on 25 milliliters of morphine in my veins, off I was gone. And this happened repetitively 8 times a year, 9 times a year for about 6 to 10 years. And that's a long time to be in and out of conscious space. And for me, that just became like a normal experience. But I genuinely feel like, looking back, and because I haven't experienced it for a couple of years now, the last time was when I got pregnant with my son, and I had ADHD, and there was all sorts of stuff going on with his soul, my soul, energies was off. And I ended up being in the hospital with the stomach problem again, the first time in a few years after that. And again, I experienced this it's just an out of body experience. I don't really know how to explain it any other way, but because it had become so normal to me, that was just normal, And then I had a very similar experience on plant medicine. Well, it wasn't similar, it was completely different. And again, I genuinely feel like I didn't have the words to explain to people. There was only very few people I could explain it to, but this was more of I'd say, if I were to verbalize it, the ones I was having in the hospital were kind of physical, like you say. They were on a visceral, physical level, but there was in my emotional and spiritual self, it was more gaining information, gaining insight, gaining perspective shifts to integrate and embody into the human. Whereas when I was on plant medicine, it was in the height of 2021, in the spiritual battle going on. And yeah, it was probably the only time in my life I wasn't as protected as I always am, because I was cocky. I was in my ego, oh yeah, I can do this. I really did think I was the bee's knees. And I went into that experience not in my right frequency. And they knew that, whatever energies was at play at that time. And yeah, it was genuinely, I didn't think I would survive it, 100%. I did not think I was going to come out of it. And I remember being pulled back into my body. And it was like I could see again, and I could move my body, and I was actually in my body again. And that was such a physical experience, to where I could see it all, what was going down. I was being shown what was happening to my human body. I won't really use the words because I don't want to tap into the frequency, but I was shown the physical experience of what was happening, what would happen, how it would look. And I was having to just witness this and experience it. And it was just so overwhelming. And then to come back into my human and try and explain that to someone was just like, what? And so I guess I didn't acknowledge the enormity, whatever the word is, of the experiences at the time, because one, I was in fear and did not understand the whole picture. And two, also, there's not many people, many places that you can go and have this conversation to. And I would have never put these experiences down as an NDE because they weren't as physical as a classic NDE experience where you actually literally die or get to that brink point on a physical level. But I knew I was there in different ways, and the things I took from that, are the reason I'm on my journey now. But yeah, what wild experiences, your experiences, and talking with Becca and listening to that podcast have really allowed me this week to actually acknowledge my own journey, my own experiences with NDEs on a more spiritual and emotional body level, but also acknowledging the value of how that feels so physical when you're experiencing it.
Oh, definitely.
Mhm.
It's a really, it's such an altering experience. And I do say altering because it, at least from my experience, it shifts your DNA real fast.
Completely. Completely.
You come back in and you're like, yeah, definitely not that person anymore.
Nope.
Um,
Nope. Nope.
And
And that's the thing.
that's it right there. And if that's the realization through these NDEs, then it's, I'm not the same person. Okay, now what am I gonna do with that creation? For
Right.
me now, because I've had so many of them, I know that, okay, there was a resonance, there's a shift. I have different information now in my physical body. Okay, physical body, how are we going to take action with this? What's that?
Choice. Yeah.
Choice
And
with
is that not what makes it the NDE? Because if not, it's just a spiritual, I'm not diminishing, but if not, I guess if it's not on the physical level and it's on spiritual and emotional body level, we could have experiences where we check in with this higher self, like, are you doing okay? Can you keep doing this? Like, is this all good? And that might not be as much of an NDE. But when your body, mind, and soul is being given the choice, do you want to continue in this body, in this timeline?
Yep.
Or even not given the choice. In my case, on the plant medicine, that was, the choice was not involved. It was being taken fully away. There was no choice. And so I guess it then, the point of it is it's the line between returning or not. And that's what makes it the NDE, whether it is on the physical classic level, whether it is in a variation of anywhere between that on the physical, or whether it is spiritually, where I knew something was trying to inhabit my body that was not me, and they was going to take over and mimic me and play out that for my life. And I was just going to be in this little jar. I could see it all going down. And I was so aware of that on a physical level. And so many people said, oh, no, it's just something you saw. It's just this. And I was like, listen, you don't know. You don't know, until you don't know. And it changes you, like you say, on a cellular level. It changes you so much to where you cannot physically return to the person you were before that experience. Physically, your body does not have them same components, makeups, frequency, energy at all.
Nope.
There might be some things that remain the same. Like I still love my family. I still love my animals and, nature and shit. There's always the same consistent things, but wow, the journey changed so much from being immersed in the 3D world, wanting to be a criminologist, a detective at university,
Yep.
what had amazing ambitions about this money that I needed for this house and all the wrong reasons, and it just shifted my whole thing to where it stripped back and I was like, listen, I live in the woods in the tent if I need time, I'll do it. There was no
Yep.
need for anything. It was just pure gratitude for life. And them experiences, every time I'd wake up the next day after being on the being in the hospital, thinking, I can breathe, I can walk, I can move,
Yep.
and that humbled me so much. It propelled me into my deep, deep, deep healing journey because I basically got told at 19, you will have to be on 26 tablets a day for the rest of your life. And I was like, yeah. So that's when I decided to, okay, what can we do here? And I started obviously on a very physical level. So I started detoxing the body, herbal tea. I actually wrote an ebook at this time around everything I did. So if you are interested in that, you can get a copy of it. It's like all my beginnings of my journey into mind, body, soul. And I started off very much on the physical level. And I guess you kind of think, oh, this is great. I'm understanding it. I'm getting healing, I'm doing it. And you are. But you're humbled real quick when you realize there's so many layers to that healing. It's mind, body, soul, spirit, nervous system, everything in between. And, we are missing parts of that, I think, in the healing journey. We're not always taught the full picture. What do you think about that, Z?
I think it gets really hard to be taught the whole picture because I feel like it's an
Mm.
experience, you know,
Yeah.
a very personal one, a very deep one. I mean, there's plenty of like non-word space that I could bring. I'm like, I don't even have um, words for all the aspects in those experiences because you couldn't possibly, at least from my perspective. I know coherently throughout each of those experiences, the one thing that I do know, which is where the trust and confidence comes in, is that there is something greater than this human body out there, and it so enveloped me every single time. And I was so able to feel that immensity and know that that was my home and that I'm a visitor here, right? Growing. Okay. Um, I think to be able to traverse these experiences is a whole nother ball game. And I'm
Mhm.
sure listening to this now, for those of you who have been on this journey for a while, or your own personal journey, or whatever kind of growth you're looking at, you might have had several of these, and you're just realizing, oh, I think I've done that a few times. What did that
That
actually?
was me this week.
Yeah. What does that look like? Because really,
Mhm.
like, I mean, I usually just call them transitional spaces, right? Because for
Right.
me, ex we're continuing to expand. We're not dying. This is just one step into the next step. Even if this body goes in this particular time and space, like that's one step into the next step. And that's
Yeah.
where my body was at. And I hadn't actually realized how deep my body was processing the choice until that.
Right.
She was the one that called that in, actually. She was like, huh, I have a
Mhm.
choice right here, right now. I'm going to see how I want to take that route.
Mhm. And I
Because
love that you allow that. Sorry, continue.
oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. At this point, this is all fully body consciousness choice and awareness. Because like the body consciousness is what's growing. Our souls are growing, of course, with it. It is one multitude and spectrum, like I said. But my body is the one who's in this physical reality, traversing this, experiencing it, doing the very physical stuff. She has all the permission to grow in whichever way she needs. And my soul aspect, they're like best friends, right? They've traversed for a long time together. They talk to each other constantly. I can tell like the communication between both. But my soul is always going to be like, you have a choice no matter what it
Mhm.
is that you want to do down here. What is that choice? And coming back from the NDE, my body had been processing that for a couple weeks and really at a choice point of like, you know, I'm excited and happy for what I've done here. This body is really excited about it. It's excited to be here right now. It's excited to traverse. And also she wouldn't be in any type of deep like failure space or I haven't done enough if she left. She's just not there through her experience. Right. So it was my soul sitting next to my body and like having a very deep conversation about, hey, like what is it that you want to do here? And also too, because naturally the frequency is increasing, there's lots of frequencies coming in all the time. How are you gonna actually embody that? And
Yeah.
you know
That's a
that
big
that's a big one. And that's where the body had a lot of deep feelings about the process because to her in a very physical reality, that's like full out autism, right? That is
yeah.
like a very immerse intensive because she's always been that way. It's just now
Yeah.
there's no masks, there's
But that's the thing. There is no masks in that realm.
nope.
No.
So that's naturally how the body's going to inflect that. And that's a very clear direct line on the highest timeline, more and more and more so. That's how that's being perceived. So and not to put a label on it, but it does help my body process, oh, like these are the types of ways that's going to be moving its way through, even though I don't need to
Yeah.
put a name on it, it's very helpful because she is human. So, that was just a big, big acceptance. And every time I've had one of these, it was a big, big acceptance. Like coming back from the trafficking situation, and I think I had three near deaths in that whole time while I was doing that. That last one coming back into like, I'm accepting this has happened to me, and I'm in this choice point as well, but I know I'm getting out of here. Okay.
Mhm.
Like still not any less impact. It was very impactful, but
Yeah.
it's being able to like walk all of those aspects, the mind, the body, the soul, being able to bring that into the reality, learning how to verbally communicate about it or at least express it. Sometimes that's
Yeah.
me, I do a lot of nonverbal. My body's just like, I'm not in the space for that. So I'm gonna sing it out, I'm gonna draw it out, I'm gonna go out and dance. I'm gonna maybe inflect it in my outside appearance with the clothes that I'm wearing, however
Yeah.
else it wants to inflect, but it's expressing itself regardless.
Yeah. And I love that. And I really don't think that's just you. I think
Oh,
there's so many people,
absolutely.
yeah, that are feeling that. I'm feeling it in different ways. My friend Claire, she's experienced it and she said it without knowing our conversation. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely a thing then, because this has been mentioned like 3 times. The increase in hypersensitivity, having to like stim to regulate the body, not being able to cope with public transport or public environments like we used to be able to do with more ease and more masking. And I think that's the thing. As we asked for more embodiment of our soul, what did we think that was going to look like? Still being in this condensed body, not being able to live fully in authenticity with this full embodied soul. Well, that does not make sense, And that's not to say every single person on earth is going to become non-verbal. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that there's still going to be that creative force. There's still going to be that drive, that passion. Who you are as a soul is still going to remain. Simply, probably in the brutalest, bluntest way I can put it, the tolerance for the 3D world will be removed. So the tolerance to be integrated into the 3D world, the tolerance to sit and conform and people please and nod your head like the Winston Churchill dog is probably going to remove itself, because we're not able to hold both them frequencies.
Yep, exactly.
As any of us know into the spiritual journey, you start going into your mind, body, soul healing. Well, something's got to give. You've got to get rid of something to be able to make room for the new things. And this is exactly what we're doing. We're getting rid of the ability to mask, to be able to fully embody who we are. And I don't think that's the biggest sacrifice to me. If we get to fully embody our souls and live in true pure peace and more connection to self and more like joy in that embodiment. And if that means that, truly I look at my own stuff and some things I'm diagnosed on, some things I'm not. And I think I am literally a walking poster for ADHD cross autism. Like you could diagnose me by actually watching me just for about 5 seconds. But literally, anyone that knows me would agree with that, hands down. It's just a thing. And I think, sometimes I used to live life wondering what was wrong with me. Why? Why am I like this? Why is it so hard for me to live in this human body and this experience and to have one thought and one thing and not finish things and not be on time and not struggle with this and, not be overloaded with overstimulation of things and just, things changing last minute and people's energy being off and people's tone being off when they say they're fine. Like there's this hypersensitivity to everything, overload by the smallest things. And lately I've realized that I just need to stop fighting it. Maybe if I stop fighting it, maybe then it's so hard, and just stop trying to make myself be like normal people. Because you compare, you're like, well, I'm not on time to these play groups. I can't get there for 9 o'clock in the morning. Me get somewhere with my 2 kids under 2 at 9 o'clock in the morning would be a miracle on earth. Like, it's not happening, and it's just the small things that you give yourself criticism for. Like, why is it so difficult for me? But then also when you actually ask yourself that question, and you think, well, actually, it is difficult for me. It's not easy to do. And so why am I punishing myself for things that genuinely are difficult for my nervous system? And if I choose something that's a bit softer on all of our nervous system for the sake of an hour or two, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a big consequence to make. And I feel like we make such a big deal out of not being normal. Well, I did. And I think, social programming around me. And I guess I've really acknowledged that it's all right. Whatever your normal is, that's cool. We don't all need to be doing the same thing. I'm incredible at the things I do, but sometimes I'm not great at the other things, and that's okay. I don't need to be perfect in every department. And I guess that's where I've come to with my own way my brain works. I spent years trying to fix it, when really I think the problem was trying to fix it, but that was actually the issue.
I get that. Thank you for expressing that. I feel like that's the whole thing, is just like no resistance. And now my body doesn't have that. Those wirings are gone. So when I'm out in public, I am stimmy. I am like, if I have a sensory overload, I won't be verbal. Like I'm going to be dealing with my vibes my way, and it's fully embracing and accepting that. And I'm really grateful because the body's just going to do it now. It has zero tolerance for
literally
for none of that.
But it's true. And kids are the same. Like Phoenix already is 2.5, and like I take him into a busy environment and he just clings to me. I'm like, nope, too much energy in here. And it will literally take him like 2 hours at a family gathering or something to uncling off me like a koala bear and feel comfortable and safe in his body. And that's okay. Like I don't expect him to walk in and be, absolutely fine. Like, and a lot of ways I experienced growing up was like, you just have to do it. Like you have to just deal with it. Why are you being dramatic? Why are you being this and that and this? And I think it's so important as we're holding space, hopefully for ourselves through this transition, also be aware that the kids that are coming in are so much more sensitive and hypersensitive to energy and noise and frequency, that to them, the small things that maybe wouldn't have bothered us as kids because we were so exposed to different things, and same with the generation before, do bother them. And that's not that they're weak or conditioned to be soft, like I hear a lot. It's simply we are learning the effect on the nervous system of doing them things. And so we're learning not to do them to children so that we don't create adults that are also in such misalignment. Because, I find it wild. Like, we've all had our own journeys. Yours is incredible, the things you've been through and the ways, you've got to hear, and that fire that you have in your soul. It's just inspiring, And when I look at my journey, it was very based in the physical realm, in the physical health, mental health. All of my awakening stemmed there. Was very open as a child, but throughout my teenage years, I was immersed into the ego of the left, of the teenage world. And going through them, what I do now perceive as spiritual NDEs, allowed me to be recorrected on my course, to be kind of realigned to, like I said, starting with the body, but then starting to look at, okay, why does my body react in this way? What is it saying? What is the meaning behind it? What is asking to be communicated through this experience? Kind of all the different layers that come up. And then it led me to the spiritual side, to the emotional energy I might have been holding in my solar plexus, because that's where my stomach problems were, right in my solar plexus. And so then I'd be unpicking the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, not just one thing. Like, you can't just focus on one level, because I believe personally that the root is not just one, it's going to be this kind of tree root that's formed from all the different layers that have allowed it to grow. So it's important to really cut down the branches so that you can see what you're working with, and you can address the root, and really dive deep into them layers. Because I remember thinking that I'd clocked it, because I'd done the physical detoxing. I was on all the herbs, I was on all the different plants and all the different things that realign me. I was doing yoga and wild swimming, but then inside, my nervous system was still a wreck. My mind was still not in flow, not in trust, not in balance. So then I had to go deeper into that. Then I had to go to the inner child and the different layers and the past lives. And, it just enveloped from there. And I'm still doing all the work now on deeper levels. So I think that's kind of one of the points to this video is, don't come at healing on a one lens approach. It's great to have a speciality or a thing that you're really enthusiastic about and, into, but also open yourself up to learning everything and anything that calls you, because you'll learn so much about yourself and about your journey and about where you're meant to be. And even things you think, oh, I don't need to do that. You might need to meet someone. You might need to have a conversation. Trust that where you're being guided is for a reason. And sometimes don't let the ego think it knows better. Allow yourself to just go with that flow of divinity.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And also be yourself in it. I'm going to keep saying that. Be yourself.
Always.
Own your own perspective. I always say, like, this is our perspectives. Please have your own, and definitely continue to ask us questions, because we want to dive deeper into any of these topics. Of anything that we have covered so far up to this point as well. If you want more, I'm always excited to dive deeper on questions. But as a free flow, we're just dancing with it.
Yeah. And like we always say, we keep it realer than real. We're going through it with you. I'm physically detoxing this week. I have a sore throat. I have all the things going on in my head. The kids are detoxing. They've got illnesses. We're all going through it, and I don't often experience it on a physical level anymore. I think because I did my time, like 10 years in my prime years was enough for me. But, now when I do, I'm instantly first to check, okay, what does this mean on a spiritual level? And one fantastic book that I will recommend is Metaphysical Anatomy by Yvette Rose. It is fantastic at offering prompts and reflections on why that illness might be manifesting, or pain or ailment in that specific area. Mm-hmm. And I always use that to unpick maybe the emotional or spiritual charge behind the physical symptom, because there might be a physical reason. You might have torn a muscle. Okay. But then on a deeper level, why that muscle? Why that place? Why that time? There's always a reason. And my friends get annoyed because I'm like, hang on a minute. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason. There's got to be a reason. Because there is. There's always deeper. So
I've always
question
found
more.
that.
That's what I
Yep.
would leave you with.
I've
Sorry,
always
Z.
found that. No, no, I always found that to be true. When something comes up,
Yeah.
there's always a deeper level, deeper reason. And if you're in that much connection with your body, your nervous system, it likes to tell you what's up.
Yeah. Literally.
Tell
Literally. And
you.
I used to say my body spoke to me that loud over the years that she didn't just shout, she screamed like,
Oh
if
yeah.
you don't listen, you're gonna know. And truly that's what charged the drive between making the first retreat. The first retreat came to me in 2020 and it was mind, body, soul. And it was the trinity between the mind, body, and soul. And I always think it's really funny that religion use that, not disrespecting it. But for me, I always seen it as your mind, body, and spirit, you know, your connection to self, your trinity to you, and then your higher self to your God, to your source energy. And I just find it interesting that it's also used in a similar way, you know. So yeah, interesting. I just thought I'd put that one out there. But yeah, from when I did the Mind Body Soul retreat in 2023, I actually ran the retreat. So much has expanded since then as well. And what a fantastic retreat that was. It was mind blowing and incredible. But also from that point, I feel like I've dived so much deeper in the past 3 years. It feels like 7 years compared. It feels like a lifetime ago. And I think now what we're bringing to this surrender and serenity really says it in the name. You do have to be on the frequency to surrender. You know, you have to be ready to just trust that you are exactly where you need to be. You're guided in the right way and you're safe.
Yep.
And once you surrender, you will gain the peace. You will gain that inner peace that both me and Zia talked about walking through them deep, dark nights of the soul and coming back into that embodiment when you know you're not where you need to be. It's rough because you've got so much undoing, unpicking, making a path this way from where you've been building this way. You know, it's a lot. And so if you are feeling like you just need a bit of community connection, reflection, support, rest, whatever, if you're just feeling aligned to come, then you know what to do. Head to the website. There is the option. I think it's only going to be up for a week or two more to secure your place with a £500 deposit. And then your ticket will be fully secured. There is only 12 places left, I believe. So if you do want to be with us, me and the in Crete and the lovely lady Lucy, who will be joining us on one of our YouTubes, who does everything somatic, physical movement, body releasing. We're going to be doing yoga, we're going to be doing breath work, we're going to be doing Kundalini activations, we're going to be doing releasing all sorts of different things, and that's
Nervous
not
system work,
including the
soul
energy
work.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Having celebration, having fun. And it's really like, you guys, if you're ready to meet yourself on a deeper level and then do it in community in a space where the transformation can hold and be sustainable, it's a place to
yeah.
be.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Those that have booked your tickets, thank you for putting your trust into us, that you know that this is going to be the trip of a lifetime. And now I genuinely, fully, wholeheartedly believe that. I was in my imposter syndrome when I first started doing this a few years ago, and I believed in the energy work deeply, but I didn't necessarily believe in myself. And now I look at these experiences and what they've given to so many people. And I was reading through the testimonies as I was putting them on the website, and I just felt this sense of like, wow, we've created this. Like, you know, it was like a little bit of pride, and I felt really connected to the people that we connect with on these journeys. So, you know, yeah, if you're feeling called, come join us. And if you are unable to join us on the retreat, there is a workshop day in June, 28th of June, in North Yorkshire in Settle at Falcon Manor. So that might be something that's calling you to do some inner child work,
Yeah.
reprogramming the patterns, reprogramming the subconscious mind, and really doing the work with embodying it in the nervous system. So if you are feeling drawn to either of them, you know what to do, click the links below and we'll see you then.
We love you guys so much. Thank you.
Bye. Beautiful people.
Hi, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the content and the immersive co-creative processes with others. I have a question for you. What would it be like to fully trust your own perspective, your intuition, all of that beautiful insight that you've gathered over time, all of the healing work that you've done, all the interpersonal deep work that you've done? If you could fully trust that and feel that in your system, walk it without hesitation, without not making the right decision, without stopping yourself, without sabotaging yourself, what would that feel like? And if you'd like to go a little bit deeper, please click on links below.